In the previous sections, we walked through the first two steps of our opportunity validation process: conducting a manager briefing and refining user value. In this lesson, we'll focus on the third step, refining the business value. In this step, you'll determine the magnitude and likelihood of impact your project can have on the business. It's important to validate and refine business value hypotheses before beginning work on a project for three main reasons. First, the original assumptions shared during your manager briefing could be inaccurate, too generous, or simply wrong. This means that the estimated value could be unattainable. You don't want to commit to a metric that you'll ultimately fall short of meeting. Here's a scenario to illustrate. Your manager believes that a feature improvement project can deliver a 10% increase in feature adoption. This 10% increase is based on the assumption that your project will affect the total user base for the product. But in reality, your project only targets one persona, which makes up only half of the product's entire user base. So realistically, the feature improvement project can only drive a 5% increase rather than 10%. If you hadn't tested your manager's assumptions before beginning the project, you would have ended up trying and failing to reach unreasonable expectations. Second, refining the business value ensures you're working on a project that will deliver a positive impact on the business. When you deliver value and impact the trajectory of the business, your efforts are likely to be recognized by your manager, which allows you to gain traction in your role and accelerate your career. The opposite is also true. If you work on a project that ultimately delivers neutral or negative value for the business, you've just wasted time and resources. These types of projects commonly face late-stage blow-ups when product leaders or managers realize there's no return on investment. Even if they manage to launch, the project may have to be sunsetted or deprecated later. This can erode trust and cause your manager to hesitate in assigning you future projects. Finally, when you meet your goals and create positive business value, engineers and designers are more likely to trust you and be excited to work with you in the future. Everyone wants to work on a successful team, and building cross-functional credibility is crucial for getting projects done efficiently. When you take time to refine and validate your business value hypotheses, you're more likely to meet or beat your targets. You're also building a reputation for accurate estimates, which means engineers and designers are more likely to trust your leadership. In this section, we'll teach you how to leverage a method called funnel analysis to validate and refine your business value hypotheses. Funnel analysis is an approach to estimating impact that maps a series of steps your users take to get to a specific goal or endpoint, and then identifies when the biggest drop-off points are. There are three key steps to follow to conduct funnel analysis for your opportunity. First, you need to build the funnel. We'll show you how to establish the starting point and end point of your funnel and identify the steps that connect the two. Second, calculate the problem magnitude. We'll teach you how to create a baseline for the current performance of the funnel and identify the biggest problem areas. And third, evaluate the potential business value. We'll explain how to use proxy metrics from previous projects in your company or external sources to create directionally correct estimates for your projects. You can use the Refine Business Value template to walk through each step of funnel analysis for your own projects. In this lesson, we'll go through the first step of funnel analysis, building the funnel. In the next lesson, we'll cover steps 2 and 3. A funnel breaks down into 4 key components. The first is the target audience. We can define the target audience based on a set of attributes or some other signal that indicates they're a candidate for this feature. Next is the starting point. We can define the starting point of the funnel based on a specific action that the target user takes in the product. At the end of your funnel is an endpoint. This is typically a quantitative signal or user action that signifies that the user problem has been solved. In between the starting point and the end point, there are intermediate steps. These are actions that lead us from the start to the end of the funnel. To build a funnel, we need to understand what type of funnel is relevant to our project. We can then use that to inform how we construct the funnel for the feature opportunity. There are 3 common types of funnels we can build to capture business value: sales funnels, feature funnels, and growth funnels. Sales funnels typically break down the journey of a user from when they're a prospect or lead for the project or feature to when they're considered acquired or converted. Let's use Zendesk, a CRM platform for customer service and sales teams, to walk through what a sales funnel typically looks like in practice. The target audience for a sales funnel might match the target audience for your existing products, or it may represent an adjacent audience or specific segment within that audience. For example, let's focus the funnel on Zendesk's customer service solutions. The starting point is often the point at which the lead or prospect becomes aware of your product. For Zendesk, this might be customers who land on Zendesk's website after clicking on an article or ad. The endpoint is often the point of purchase, when the lead turns into a paying customer for your product. For Zendesk, this looks like actually purchasing a plan for your team. Intermediate steps often include things like sales demos and initial interactions with the product. For Zendesk, this might include things like going through a product tour, setting up a call with a business development representative, or starting a free trial. The next type of funnel is a feature funnel. Feature funnels typically break down the journey of the target audience for a feature from awareness to retention. Let's build out a funnel using our Lyft example from the previous section of this module. The driver experience team is looking to improve the end-of-session experience for drivers as they look for riders that are going in a similar direction. The target audience is the audience that the feature was developed for. For Lyft, this feature will focus on drivers, particularly part-time drivers who live in suburban or rural areas and commute to drive for Lyft in busier areas. The starting point in a feature funnel is typically the signal that the target audience is active in the product in a given time frame. This might be opening an email or logging into the dashboard. In our Lyft example, the starting point is when a driver begins a driving session. The end point is a signal of feature value being delivered. In this case, the signal of value delivery is the successful completion of a ride. Intermediate steps will vary across features. In our Lyft example, we're following the driver's journey from the beginning to the end of a completed ride. The intermediate steps in this journey are receiving a ride request, accepting the request, viewing the passenger's destination, and picking up a passenger. The final common type of funnel is a growth funnel. In a growth funnel, the user journey is broken down to explore specific user states, including acquisition, which is when a user is acquired, activation, which is when the user is activated, and engagement, which is when the user becomes engaged. Let's illustrate this using a hypothetical example from Bumble. Suppose they want to increase activation for a certain demographic, such as Hispanic males between the ages of 30 and 35. That would be their target audience. The starting point of the funnel is acquisition or signing up. The end point is activation, which Bumble defines as exchanging their first message with a match. The steps between the start and end points include creating a profile, uploading contacts, viewing and swiping on profiles, and getting a match. We've now walked through the first step in funnel analysis, building a funnel. In the next lesson, we'll continue with the funnel analysis process by learning how to calculate the problem magnitude and evaluate the potential business value.